Good morning and welcome inside another edition of Mic'd Up here. Mic'd Up in the morning this Tuesday morning here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now and all throughout the Now family of networks. Of course, Mic'd Up is presented by Martin Lawn Services. You can call Doug Martin at 412-849-5894. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and I am joined by my Mike counterpart, Mike Vukovcan. And we now return after a little bit of a long weekend. I had a little bachelor excursion down in Deep Creek, so I enjoyed myself, to say the least. I hope you had a good weekend as well, Mike. And a lot going on in the Pittsburgh sports scene throughout that weekend, of course. Over the Steelers Now, you can check out all of our coverage and videos on this channel here in the Steelers Now section of Steelers rookie minicamp and what went on there. And Najee Harris certainly looking good and kind of maybe reminding some of a former Steelers running back and Le'Veon Bell. But the Penguins, they also play that first playoff game and they lose, surprisingly, losing 4-3 in overtime to the New York Islanders. And Penguin fans are familiar with what happened last time these two teams played in the playoffs. We're also going to touch on Pitt and an unveiling of taxes in terms of the money Pitt has been spending on head coaches and kind of Mike's thoughts in particular on what that says about the Pitt program and maybe in comparison to what some thought. So this is going to be Penguin talk, Pitt talk. We'll leave the Steelers for SteelersNow.com and future shows. So, Mike, to get underway here, the Penguins are the headline. The Penguins lose game one. They have game two coming up tonight now, and it seems like a must-win game, really. You still have home ice, but you don't want to get behind 0-2 to still a good Islanders team, even though not as deep as the Penguins. Malkin was practicing before game one, didn't play, practicing again yesterday. Rumors of maybe playing in this game too. We'll yet to hear that information, but seems like you got to get him back in the lineup. And Jari didn't play well. I remember you asked me what was going to be that one problem for the team, what could get them upset despite the depth and Crosby playing so well. My answer was goaltending. Goaltending wasn't good enough for them in game one, even though he did make some saves. I still feel like they're going to win this series. I did throw the tweet out there after losing game one. They're still going to win this in 5. I thought they'd actually win it in 5 going in. I still think that's possible. I actually thought they outplayed the Islanders most of the game despite eventually losing. But it's not going to be easy now, and they certainly haven't made this easy on themselves because they let one get away.
No, you don't want to lose game one in the fashion that they did.
Right.
I thought they were, they're at home. They were on a streak. They were going up against a goalie, Ilya Sorokin, that was making his debut.
Yeah.
And they just, I know everyone's going to focus on Jari, and that's to be expected. I thought there was at least 3 questionable goals that he gave up, or goals that he should make saves on in the playoffs. But I really thought from the second period on, this isn't getting enough talk. It's too much on Jari, but they were just outworked. I thought the Islanders had more life. They were more physical with the Penguins. They had better chances. And what was disappointing to me was I thought this was going to be one of their strengths, and it's one game, and we know in the playoffs, if you're a really good team, it lasts forever. But I was a little disappointed they didn't see more out of Carter and the Zucker. I thought they were going to be a big factor for the Penguins, at least in the playoffs. And, through one game, they weren't. And we talked about this. Any great Stanley Cup team needs secondary scoring. And the Penguins are going to need to get it. They got that amazing goal out of Crosby, which I still have no idea how he scored.
He just keeps amazing us, yes.
Yeah, that's just, ridiculous. Yeah. But other than that, they just didn't, they were lucky to tie it with 3 minutes left with Capel. So it's discouraging, but it's certainly not, with the best of 7, it's certainly not insurmountable.
No, and I think the Penguins can feel comforted in, and Penguins fans can feel comforted in, even though we're in the midst of a freak-out session based on they've lost a lot of playoff games in a row. They put up the graphic there that Mike Sullivan, the 9 series victories, but he's lost his last 3, so it's 9 to start a career with the 2 cups and then losing a lot since. Crosby's still there. That's not going to be acceptable for the fan base. We talked about that before, too. This team is going to be judged by the playoffs, not the regular season, even though he had a Jack Adams Award caliber coaching season. Crosby would have been an MVP in any other year with the exception of McDavid's 100 points. He's going to get it this year. But this team had to overcome a lot of obstacles to get to this point. Malkin missing tons of time. Yet, it's going to be about what they can do from here on out. They did have puck possession. It did appear almost to your point, they took their foot off the gas a little bit. It almost felt like they thought they were controlling the puck enough that they were going to win the game even when they weren't getting scoring chances. And just eventually, and I thought this would occur, just eventually I thought they would just beat down the Islanders' defense, even though they don't allow that many goals, just the Penguins putting so much firepower in there. They had 2-3 minutes where the puck didn't leave the zone. I mean, they really were controlling it the first period and a half. And then once the Islanders scored, once they broke through, and then certainly once they got that second goal, they got their swag back. They felt like they really could win the game. And that seemed to take a little bit of life out of the Penguins. And I'll tell you this, throughout the history of the Stanley Cup playoffs, the most talented team does not always win. In fact, often doesn't win. And when that team doesn't win, they're usually losing early in the playoffs. And when that happens, they're usually getting outworked. That's what happened with Tampa Bay a few years ago. The year before they won the Cup, they got outworked when they got swept and bounced out. Teams that have tons of talent can win, but they also have to work hard. You can get outworked with more talent and lose. It's happened 10 millions of examples I can be giving you here throughout the history of the playoffs. So I think they're going to win game 2. I do think it's important for Malkin to get back in this lineup soon, especially with him practicing. I thought he was going to play in game 1. Crosby's going to keep doing the same thing.
It's not a good sign, the fact that yesterday during the line rushes and the power plays and everything that he wasn't able to go. And all the Penguin insiders, the guys who are at practice and have a history of, determining, what it looks like. At least, I no idea if Sullivan's playing, playoff games or not, but no one had the belief that Malkin would be a go for game 2. So, we'll find out, obviously Dan Konversky and everybody will have had to late us on that in the morning during the morning skate, but didn't look good.
No, it did not look good. And there was maybe hope before game 1, but it doesn't look good right now. And he's certainly needed for this team, even though he was struggling early on in the season, then got hurt. Certainly could add that punch for this team. Carter, been great since the trade. He was great at the end of the season, had a 4-goal game. I mean, he was playing better than I thought he would, even though I thought he would give a lot to the team. He has the 2 cups. He has tons of experience, even though he's older. Zucker, the same. You got to get more from the secondary scoring, of course. Carter got an assist, but he's also -2, so that means he was certainly a part of negative production as well for the team when they were allowing goals. So they need more from everybody else, but I will tell you, Mike, as we transition here, no matter what happens, they need more goaltending. And I'm not somebody that thinks Tristan Jarry's career is over or you're going to blame everything under the sun against him. Penguin fans sometimes are hard on goaltenders. We've seen that with Fleury, Murray, etc., and we now see that with what Fleury's doing right now in the great year he's had this year. But Jarry has to be better. He was not good enough in that game. And I think the problem, which is not getting discussed enough as well, because I even had a friend ask me, well, are they going to go to DeSmith in game 2? DeSmith isn't healthy right now. He wasn't available in game 1. So they don't have the cushion of even a goalie controversy right now. This is Tristan Jarry, for better or worse, probably through this series based on what we're right now hearing from DeSmith based on his health. So you don't want to have to rush him back. He's not healthy. This is Tristan Jarry, and he does need to be better for sure, no matter what. It just has to be better.
Yeah. The goaltender is the most important person in the series, as we found out from the Penguins. When they lose, a lot of times during this bad run,
they run into a hot goaltender.
It's been called that's the term, a hot goaltender. But you just have to wonder how many times can you run into a hot goaltender without it?
Right.
You start looking in the mirror, and is it you, and not really the hot goaltender? But I think it's too early for that. But one thing that won't be too early is if they lose tonight. This team is under pressure, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers. When you lose 9 out of 10 games in the playoffs, which they've done, they've enjoyed tremendous, unprecedented success in the regular season.
Sure.
But franchises like the Penguins, they're judged by the playoffs. And when trust me, no matter what they say, no matter what Mike Sullivan says, they know the stat losing 9 out of the last 10 games. They know their history against the New York Islanders.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and Mike
This team,
Sullivan,
most of those players still there. Yeah,
yeah, and Mike Sullivan has lost 2 consecutive series against Barry Trotz in the playoffs, going back
that's the
to
trick.
the Islanders and the Capitals. So he knows how to play the Penguins. He knows they're an offensive team, and his defensive, boring type style, while it might not be nice to watch, it's about winning. And Trotz has a formula, and the Penguins are just going to have to find a way to break it. But the pressure will be amped up tonight if they're not on the winning side of that scoreboard, and then there will be
Sure.
reason. There will be reason for and justified reason for concern.
Yeah, and I think what would also happen if they would lose game 2, and certainly if they would lose the first round series, every piece of good faith the Penguins earned this year with, again, Mike Sullivan having to coach this team up and really legit being a coach of the year candidate, the great year Crosby had, how this team had to overcome adversity, and they weren't good earlier in the year to then win a division, which they hadn't done in 6 or 7 years. All that would be gone. They would be remembered for this first round loss, especially with having more talent. And Barry Trotz, I think, is the nail on the head. Yes, they got swept by the Islanders recently. Yes, the Islanders have had their number really throughout the history of the franchises. But Barry Trotz is really that equalizer recently, winning a cup with the Capitals, then doing it again with the Islanders to beat the Penguins as well. And all those years, Ovechkin and the Capitals couldn't get over the hump and couldn't beat the Penguins. Not a lot of that was with Barry Trotz. Once Trotz got there, the table was flipped soon after, a year or so after, and then he eventually won that cup and was able to get over the Penguins hump. So he has found that recipe to beat Pittsburgh, and it really is to play that defensive style, kind of reminiscent of the New Jersey Devils in the 90s, where he is just going to make Crosby have to do it on his own, going to take out everyone else, going to play that boring style and just try to just control the puck as much as they can and almost trap the Penguins in a way. And it worked in game 1. I still think the Penguins were the better team most of the way and should have won that game. Game 2 is a must win. I do think they're going to win the game, by the way. But if they don't, it will be a grave issue. And the Islanders are the team that have enough scoring that they can win this series. People focusing on the defense, they don't allow that many goals. So when you score 3, that has to be enough to beat them, and they can certainly score with the best of them. We'll see. Again, Pittsburgh Hockey Now will have the coverage, and also here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, we're going to have post-game shows. Matt Geico will be hosting those throughout these playoffs, however long they go. And the hope for Penguin fans and for the Penguins is at least through this round, because I think you can maybe give mulligans beyond that with a lot of tough, great competition out there. And it is wide open in the East with Boston, the Caps in a tough series, the Florida battle, even Tampa. But they got to get through this. They really, really do. That'll be what this season is remembered by, for better or worse. Mike, as we transition here, mic'd up, of course, again, presented by Martin Lawn Services there, the number on that sign behind Mike V. We got to talk Pitt. It's Pittsburgh Sports Now, the mothership. And just interesting with the offseason that we've been hearing about and been experiencing around Pitt basketball and Jeff Capel in particular, even in recent years for Pitt football. We see the unveiling of salaries and raises and money that has been handed to some of these coaches. Just your thoughts on getting that out there, the fans now knowing what they're getting paid, knowing bumps that are there, and it kind of showing maybe to some fans who believe that Pitt's problem wasn't they weren't willing to open up the pocketbooks when they need to, that maybe that's not actually true and that they're at least doing so.
Yeah, I have no problem with these salaries. I see, relatively speaking, I know.
Yeah, you and I would love to make this money, right?
Yeah, the education side of things, should professors and all that make that's a
sure. It's a different conversation.
Yeah, I'm talking about the money that they're making, because you see, well, they better start winning if they're going to earn it. I'm not getting into that either. The biggest take that I took from the tax documents that were revealed yesterday was that it breaks the notion that Pitt isn't willing to be a player in paying for a coach, paying to win. Pat Narduzzi is making close to $5 million.
Yeah, 4.81 in 2020. Capel, yeah.
For a guy that
making close to.
I think he's a good coach. I think he's good for this program. I think he's brought tremendous stability, and I think he's taking this program to will take it beyond where he has it right now. I think he's a good fit here, so have no problem with that. But the fact that he is that high, 27th in all of college football as far as salaries, that's pretty good. And Jeff Capel,
Yeah.
he got an increase, and he's up to $3.5 million. A guy that he has a reputation, but they're paying him basically for his reputation and what they're hoping he becomes.
Yeah.
As far as taking the program, to me, you're spending close to over $8 million on your two moneymaker sports. I think it shows it quiets all the fans that says that Pitt isn't willing to be a player, and I think that's good. Now, hopefully, their coaches are able to justify, the money they make by putting up a few more W's.
I will ask this question because this is an interesting question out there. And obviously, Pat Narduzzi's been around a lot longer with Pitt than Jeff Capel. And Pat Narduzzi has had a division championship, has got close to maybe bringing the program back a while, but then has had some season get away from him. And certainly Pitt football fans expect more from Pat Narduzzi, feeling like maybe he's lost some games that otherwise he shouldn't have lost. He gets a pay increase of about $800,000, it looks like. Jeff Capel getting a pay increase of about $870,000. So they both do get raises. And a lot of this is keeping up with the Joneses because you do have to pay to get certain guys. A lot of the time in college sports now, football and basketball, men's basketball, are your money makers for most programs. Maybe UConn's different with the women's program, of course, Tennessee too. But for most programs, most Power 5 programs, you're making money really off football, number one, way ahead. And then college basketball, and maybe it's flipped if you're, say, Duke or North Carolina or something like that, or Syracuse. Yeah, those three pretty much. So otherwise, it's mostly football. And that's the case even for revenue, even if you're bad. You're basically making money usually off the football program. And Pitt is no different. But they are giving raises. Their expectations are there. We also know that Capel has been called this recruiting wizard, but he's now lost a recent recruit that we touched on in past shows, needing to replace a lot. He also let a season get away from him. He hasn't got him in a tournament yet. Based on this money, would you say this money – I'll ask you this question, and then you can tell me if the money changes your opinion at all. Which one of these two coaches between Narduzzi and Capel is under more pressure to earn this money, meaning on the field, more, and then does finding out the money they're making and the raises they've been getting the last couple of years change that answer for you at
all? No, I think it's Pat Narduzzi in that this is a football town, no matter what. Pitt football needs to be better than they are. If Pitt football starts winning, they start getting more people in Heinz Field. If they start to be more competitive, that's good for the overall program.
Yeah.
Football is still, no matter what happens with basketball,
much more historic of a football program than it is a basketball
Pitt football
program.
Is more of or Pitt athletics. I don't want to say they're better off because they want both of them to win. Pitt football needs their football program. Pitt athletics needs their football program to be more relevant and to be more
I agree.
competitive nationally than they are right now. Basketball, they've only had a few years, they had some wins, but they've really never got past the Sweet 16. And it's a harder deal in college basketball to be up with the big boys like that. So the money, I don't even look at it. I think
so. That's not a factor for you. It would have been Narduzzi even if he wasn't getting that bump in salary, and he is getting paid more than Capel. But of course, football makes more money.
And I think these are also salaries to keep people away too. Let's be honest. People are always looking to. Leech to get your coach off of you.
Well, Capel was very popular nationally for a while, even after Duke, and then his brief stint as a head coach before Pitt. If Pitt didn't snag him, then somebody else would, and I would imagine even if Pitt would fire him tomorrow, somebody else would hire him in 20 minutes.
Yeah, no question, and that's That's a good salary. And I have no
Oh
idea.
yeah, yeah.
The biggest thing is I don't know what same with Narduzzi. I don't know what their buyouts are.
That's big too. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
big.
those are always the key factor in a coach possibly leaving. But those are very competitive salaries. They're in the top 20. Which Narduzzi's 27th, Capel's 38th in all of college basketball. For never having a winning season.
Yeah, that's good for his resume
Yeah,
at Pitt, and
so
even
I think.
Narduzzi, despite the division title, yeah, that's still good based on
Yeah,
what
and
he's
I
done
think
or
they're
not done.
paying for future productivity, and if they do better, I'm sure the Pitt Heather Like and her bosses would be willing to raise that up even more. But I think those are pretty steady salaries for now, and things could change obviously if Pitt gets in both sports get to where they want to be.
Yeah, and also you see the raises, and I'm sure some fans are going to ask, why would you give a coach a raise who just lost 9 games in 2 months and didn't make a tournament? Or why would you give a coach a raise who can't make a legitimate bowl game year after year or even get in bowl games? Well, you got to get, in order to keep your guy, if you want to keep your guy, and just by the mode of college athletics, you got to give somewhat of a raise. And if they were winning titles or getting in major bowl games, that would be $1 million or $2 million raise. It's relative to their success. So it is below $900,000 for a bump in college sports. Tells you they want to keep you, they want to give you more time, but they're not throwing a parade for you right now. It's tons of money for you and I, obviously, or the average man. But in college sports, that's not an incredible number out there. That's almost a number that you got to pay when you are a Power 5 program who wants to keep your guy. Otherwise, they would lose these guys. And I think I agree that forget the fact that you're 100% right about Pitt being a football school. It has to be a football school, and Pittsburgh is a football town with the Steelers and Pitt, even above every other sport. We talked Penguins, 5 cups, Lemieux, Yager, Crosby, Malkin, etc. Doesn't matter. Steelers town, number one. So that's absolutely true. But I think there's also the end that Narduzzi's been around a while now, and Capel still has that honeymoon. We're going to give you some time because you were dealt a bad hand. You're taking over Stallings, etc. Narduzzi doesn't have any of that. There's pressure on Narduzzi to do it now because this is fully his recruits in there. He's been there a while. He has won, but then he had it dip again. So he definitely has more pressure. But he's getting paid more because college football makes more. So that's relative to the sports as well. But that's interesting to have those numbers out there. Pitt and Heather Like, they're doing their part. Heather Like, yeah, she's done wonders. It is part of now for the coaches to do their job and for the teams to be built properly and for the players to play well as well. It's on them too.
Yeah, Capel took over a complete dumpster fire.
He did 100% dumpster fire.
So 3 years, and you also got to take into consideration too. Some of it is possibly his fault, but the unprecedented situation going on right now with the transfers, and this is going to affect.
Yeah, he couldn't have predicted that.
And hopefully, he's going to stabilize things. For kind of surprisingly,
good.
That hasn't affected the Pitt football program. I was talking with Harry Paceros recently about that, and I'm kind of amazed. Not that there's reason for Pitt to be or for players to be leaving the Pitt football program, but
they've affected everybody else. It's affected other teams.
Yeah, they've basically skated through without anybody, and I guess that speaks. That's a feather in the cap for Pat Narduzzi. The fact that while the fan base and everyone else might have questions about him and whatever opinions they might want to have in him, players are staying with him, and players have chosen to come back for another year. Kenny Pickett being one. He could have left last year.
That's big.
If he didn't like Pat Narduzzi, he could have left. And there's case after case of that over the years. So that speaks something of him. So hopefully they get these things going, because all the other non-revenue sports.
It is funny.
Program, they're killing the volleyball program. Unprecedented success.
Soccer.
They made it to the finals, losing 2-1 to Indiana the other day. The wrestling program had their best season ever. So everyone's getting going here. If they get the if they can get the men's basketball and football program going here, it's a pretty good pretty good times for the Pitt athletic department.
If they get those two going, and those are the two most important, obviously,
Right.
but if they get those two going, then it's one of the better athletic programs in the entire country, because it's
Right.
very rare for any program to have 4 or 5 schools that are legit vying for postseasons and beyond, which would occur if you get those two. Now, of course, if you have every program doing it except for those two, it certainly is going to bump you down ranking wise in terms of athletic programs, because those are the two money makers. Tip of the cap, though, for the soccer program to get there. I believe only one of 4 times in Pitt program history that it's been to it was Elite Eight or beyond for those sports that have those, including a couple.
Right.
Yeah, a couple for the basketball, and then those volleyball and soccer. So yeah, volleyball and soccer have been a big feather in the athletic program's cap. And losing to a program like Indiana, that's a perennial program there, it's not like they were upset. It's a great program to lose to. So sky's the limit for all of those. The sky needs to be a limit for football. Pressure is on, but Pitt Athletics is doing their part. So you can't say they're not willing to open up the pocket and be willing to pay the right guys. I do also think Narduzzi has done well recruiting, and he's a player's coach, and the players like him no matter what some say. But maybe it's X's and O's. Again, we'll see, because the pressure is going to be on yet again to improve, especially now knowing that there's a raise there and what they are getting paid. But it's relative, and they can't complain based on their resumes and what they're getting paid from Pitt by any means. That'll do it for this morning's show. Stick with us the rest of the week, of course, and subscribe to the channel. We actually recently, if you noticed there, Mike, we actually got over a nice little hurdle there in Pittsburgh Sports Live in terms of subscribers, so keep that coming. We're also going to have continued videos for the Steelers as we trickle down more from rookie minicamp and more of that coverage over there at Steelers now, but also, of course, Pittsburgh hockey now. Big spot here. Penguins must win really in game 2. Must win in game 2, to say the very, very least. And, of course, Pittsburgh Sports Now and the rest of our sites for our coverage. For Mike Vukovcan, I'm Mike Asti. For all of us at PSL, PSN, and beyond. And for Martin Lawn Services there, you can call Doug Martin at 412-849-5894. That'll do it for this show. Check out all the sites. And, again, must win for the Penguins tonight.